Unfortunately, baby boomers are not just in trouble, but they're in serious trouble. There's about 75 million boomers in the United States, and the vast, vast majority of those folks would love to be able to retire in the next 5 years. But here's the problem. Almost half, 45%, have $0 in savings. And unfortunately, boomers are the fastest growing category of homeless people in the United States. And baby boomers benefited from the peace dividend earlier on before there was all this conflict in the world. Their investments did well. And if they owned real estate, which 80% of people over 65 do own real estate, if they owned real estate, that really helped them out quite a bit. So what's going on? First, I want to talk about what the problems are. Then I'm going to talk about the three legs of the retirement stool and how boomers are doing in those categories. And then finally, if you're a boomer, what you can do. Okay, so first, what's going on? Let's talk about the homelessness. It's a complicated issue, but an important factor is almost half, 40% of retirees are saying that they could no longer continue to work until the age that they wanted to retire. In other words, something forced them to retire sooner than what they planned on. And for some folks, and it's about a third, a third, a third. For some folks, it's a health issue. They just didn't have the health to continue working, to continue putting up with the stress. Some got laid off before they wanted to retire, and unfortunately, in your late 50s, in your early 60s, it's hard to find a job. Ageism, unfortunately, is alive and is a reality here in the United States. And then another segment of this group found themselves having to or wanting to care for aging parents or maybe adult children that needed help longer than what they thought as a parent that their child would need. So what's the takeaway from this? The takeaway from this is we all need to be ready to retire. Maybe not your dream retirement, but at least a version of retirement that's good enough. I would argue 5 years early because none of us know what's gonna happen in those last 5 years. Okay, another issue that's come up and that's hurting baby boomers, unfortunately, with the healthcare inflation, even with Medicare, once we hit 65, Fidelity Investments, super respected brokerage, issued a report that we need to plan on from the age 65 until we pass away in its entirety, in total, not per year, $165,000 for our costs above and beyond what Medicare is going to cover. Okay, and that's why I'm proud to partner with Chapter. Chapter's a Medicare advisor that puts your interest as a consumer ahead of their company's interest. And making the right decision on Medicare is critical. We've seen what those numbers can be. They're very, very large, 165,000 outside of Medicare, and it could get worse if we choose incorrectly in Medicare, both when we first sign up, but then importantly, every year thereafter. And the reason that I'm proud to partner with Chapter on this video and other videos is because I believe they're putting your interests ahead of Chapter's interests. And why do I feel that way? I feel that way because of comments that my viewers have left me, such as this one here. Here's what one viewer said: Chapter, pleasantly surprised. I called thinking they would just try to push hard on some advantage plan. The guy did not. He actually said that original Medicare and a supplement were the best choices. Not sure how he, Chapter, makes any money off that advice, but their street cred sure goes up with me because I didn't get the expected car sales guy pitch. I don't want you to get a car sales guy pitch. I want you to be speaking with an expert, and that person is bringing their expertise to help you make the right decision for you, not to help maximize the profits of the company. Again, Chapter, thank you for sponsoring this video. You can reach Chapter at the QR code or the phone number up above. Thank you. Okay. So we talked about the challenges for boomers. So where's the money for retirement going to come from? There's really three legs to the retirement stool, the retirement chair. For any of us, the first one is our pensions. The second one's our personal savings. And then the third one's Social Security. Let's talk about these one by one. From a pension standpoint, unfortunately, only 14% of private sector employees today have access to a pension. So it's very few of us. It's mostly government, municipality, state workers, things like that. Which brings us to number two, which is our savings. This is where the news is really awful. This is what retirement looks like for us as a country here. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. You can see almost half of all Americans have $0 saved for retirement. Another 9% have $10,000 or less. Another 13% have under $50,000, and another 7.4% have under $100,000. So what does that say? It says that the 80% of Americans have less than $100,000 saved for retirement. You can see from 100 to 500,000, that's getting in the range that it will provide some support in retirement. That's another 14%. 500,000 to a million is another 4%. I'm sorry. And then 1 million to 5 million, only 3.1, 3.2% of all Americans have more than $1 million saved for retirement. And, shockingly, most of us would say, that's the minimum that you need to have. I shouldn't say us. That's what most surveys show, that most people think they need to have $1 million in retirement. I'm going to share why I don't necessarily feel you need $1 million. But it's important to point out that our retirement accounts are not our entire net worth. For most of us, we have taxable savings accounts, like in a bank account. And then importantly, many of us have home equity in our houses. So this is what the household net worth looks like. This is household. So if you're married, this would include both partners in these numbers. But this is what it looks like by age. So people less than 35 years old don't have much money saved. That's not a surprise. About $40,000 is the median. 35 to 44, it's 135,000. 45 to 54, little under 250,000. 55 to 64, so this is where people are starting to think about retiring, about $365,000 in net worth. 65 to 74, you can see it continues to go up to almost 410,000. And then 75 and older, it's 1/3 of $1 million, a little over $335,000. Now, about half of that money is tied up in home equity. For most Americans, about half of our net worth is our home. So that's the good news is I do think that with proper planning, depending on what retirement looks like for you, those median net worth numbers are going to provide a good deal of support for retirement. Is that going to cover everything? Probably not. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says that the average 65 retired family, the household, spends almost $60,000 a year, $5,000 a month for retirement. So for reference. It's also important to note that having a plan is really important, a retirement plan, a financial plan to get to your goal. A lot of people like to build their own plan in Google Sheets or Excel. I think working with a financial advisor, mea culpa, I'm a retired financial advisor myself. I think the financial advisor is the gold standard. But if you're a person that wants to do this on their own, don't use Google Sheets, don't use Excel. Use software that's designed for you. It's going to take dozens of hours, if not hundreds of hours, to build this in Excel on your own, and you might make a mistake. And that's why I like Bolden software, very affordable, very powerful. Bolden used to be called New Retirement. it will do a really good job of helping you think through what retirement looks like for you and how much money you're gonna need for retirement. Okay, by the way, I'm an affiliate of Bolden. This video is not sponsored by Bolden. Obviously, earlier I said it's sponsored by Chapter. Okay, that brings us to the final leg, which is Social Security, and this is critically important for boomers and frankly for all Americans. Over half of all Americans report that they rely on Social Security for half or more of the income that they need to support their retirement. Okay, so what's the average Social Security check according to the Social Security Administration website, ssa.gov? The average monthly check changes every month, but as of earlier in 2025, that check was about $2,000 a month, and which many people will look at and say, "I can't live on $2,000 a month." Let me share with you, and that's a legitimate concern, which is why I'm sharing this op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal by a gentleman by the name of Andrew Biggs. Andrew was at the Social Security Administration for how many years? For a long, long time. And Andrew Biggs oversaw Social Security Administration's policy research efforts. So Andrew's a legitimate player. He knows what he's talking about. He wrote this op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And here's what he says: you do not need to be a millionaire to retire. So why does he say that? Well, first, let me read. He says, how much does a retiree need to feel financially secure? In the Federal Reserve survey, the median 65 to 74-year-old who reported doing okay or living comfortably had $50,000 to $100,000. Do I think that's enough? No, I do not. Andrew goes on, the median retiree who reported living comfortably had $100,000 to $250,000 in savings. Okay, which still feels lean to me. Again, use software, talk to a financial advisor to see how much you need. But importantly, Andrew Biggs goes on to say in his op-ed piece, why then do seniors report such high levels of security with seemingly paltry levels of savings? Important question. One reason is that Social Security benefits are more generous than people think. An average couple retiring in 2022 received total annual benefits of nearly $46,000, up from around $34,600 in today's dollars in 2000. So that's increased. While hardly extravagant, a typical couple can expect an income more than twice the elderly poverty threshold before they touch a penny of their savings. So he's saying that the average couple receives $46,000 in Social Security check. If you have two people that are getting that monthly, that average monthly check of $2,000 a month, that would be $4,000 a month or $48,000 a year, which agrees with Andrew's numbers. So what do you do? If you're a boomer, if you're Gen X, if you're one of the younger generations and you're behind in your savings goals, what do? You do the best you can. You save as much money as you can. And one way to get there is to think about your needs, and your wants, and separate those. Your needs are things like your mortgage or your rent, your car payments, your gasoline for your car, your groceries, things like that. Your wants are going out to eat, taking a nicer vacation, driving a more expensive car, the cardboard boxes that show up. Um, at our front porch. So if we can keep our needs to 50% of our after-tax um, paycheck, if we can keep our wants to 30%, that leaves 20% left over for savings. It's not easy to do. I know it's aspirational, and just do the best that you can. Speaking of doing the best that we can, not all of us can retire when we want, so it's important we enjoy the journey. And that's why I made this video here. 8 things to stop doing in your 50s and 60s in order to enjoy your journey until it's your time to retire. Thanks for watching this video. Bye-bye.